I don't think it's the end of civilization. I think the culture has changed, and we live in a culture where the camera determines so much of reality. In a way, these reality games are television's way and society's way of trying to come to terms with it. And I think we need to remember they're games. They're artificially constructed reality.
Well, when you say it's society's way of trying to come to terms with reality, let me beg to differ.
With the camera, not with reality.
Well,
but
I
with
think
the
it's
fact that
I think it's the networks
determines so much.
Forgive me, but I think it's the network's way of making money in the cheapest, easiest way they can.
And sure.
And if we're dumb enough to watch it, they'll keep putting it on. But
I agree with that. I think this was a very cynical move by NBC to put something that cheap and blatant on. But in the bigger picture, I think the reality trend in TV, this kind of cycle, does go to the heart of something that's going on in culture where cameras are everywhere now.
All right, cameras are everywhere. We like to believe Kurt Vonnegut's disclaimer to the contrary, notwithstanding, that we have made some small moves in the direction of a more civilized way of living. Are we just foolish even to believe that? Kurt, you want to get back in?
No, after all, we are a continent, and it's ridiculous to imagine belonging to something as big as a continent. And so, yes, we have pockets of civilization here and there, everywhere, and but no general national culture except what TV shows us. No, we have people who adore important music and literature and drama and so forth, but they are in pockets. It's not a national phenomenon. What is national is garbage.
Dick, you've been an astute observer and at times participant, not in the garbage and some of the better things that television has done over the years. When all is said and done, do programs like this make any kind of difference? Do they lead us down? In other words, is there a momentum there that is going to keep on dragging us down, or are we just going through a trend and 10 years from now we'll look back and laugh?
I would guess that it's not going to be cataclysmic. To think that a medium could produce anything as perfect as The Sopranos, and then on the next night have people diving into live eels and pig slop for bucks, it just shows I guess, the breadth and width of our society. You know, it could happen that there'll be so many people feeling the way Caryn spoke and wrote, that there would be a backlash, and that we would live someday to see networks warring over who gets Emily Dickinson and who gets Pilgrim's Progress.
None of you, I take it, is holding. Yeah, none of you is holding his or her breath. But let's, while you're contemplating that, let's take a short break, and we'll be back with our guests in a moment. And Dick Cavett, Caryn, why do newspapers like the New York Times even bother still putting reviews on the air? They seem to have absolutely no impact on the audience. I've seen some of the most ecstatic reviews, and then look at the ratings later on of some program that gets nobody to watch, and then someone like you absolutely clobbers a program, and it just seems to incite more viewership.
Well, television is a mass medium, and the bigger the medium, the more review-proof they are. So my job is to try to analyze it and to figure out what's going on here and to warn people away if I can. They don't have to listen. And the kind of promotion that Fear Factor had gave it a huge audience, no matter what any critic said.
Dick, when you and I and television were young, there were actually some people who thought it might make a difference for the better. Has it?
It's hard to say. You know, there are certain things that there's certain programs. You've had shows on that people have said, my God, that told me what I wanted to know. It changed my life. I got the medical attention I need, or learned there was something called this or that. I think, yeah, it can do a lot of good, but it can also be a frame for unbelievable dreck.
Is there a limit, Kurt?
Apparently not, and I guess H.L. Mencken said that nobody ever went broke overestimating the vulgarity of the American people. But yes, TV has, of course, produced masterpieces. And I think the Civil War documentary, for instance, was as important as any great painting. And we are the human race, and so these works of genius do appear. I would just like people to say about the persons who put on these shows who think they're a good idea, that they're scumbags.
That's a good term. And Ted, I just
I mean, but you know, don't use euphemisms. Say what you mean.
Ted, I just had an awful idea. I
What?
just there are going to be award shows for these. They'll be called the Ickies.
The what?
And the Icky
The
Award.
Ickies, yeah.
And the one that caused the most people to leave the room vomiting will probably win. There'll be some way. Nielsen will figure it out.
Before I lose all control over this, I remember when people in this country used to laugh both on radio and television at the Amos and Andy program. And I remember when the NAACP, you know, first went after that program and said, you know something, it is humiliating for African Americans to have to listen to this or to have to watch it. And people who for years had been watching those programs thinking really nothing terrible about them, that it was just, you know, mild humor, over the years have come to realize why this could be hurtful to a lot of our fellow Americans. So I have to believe that when television is at its very best, it is a force for good, but also when television is operating at its very worst, it can be a force for something other than good. Dick?
Sure, and people do go out and imitate what they see on television. I liked every violent thing I ever saw as a kid in the movies or on television later, and imitated it as much as I could and thought it was swell, but I have never murdered anyone to my knowledge, though
You have felt like a dick.
I've been tempted.
Yeah, but the kind of violence you saw when it was back in the Gene Autry, Hopalong Cassidy days was a pretty bland kind of violence.
But don't you...
It was a mock violence. I mean, you didn't really think that anyone was going to get hurt.
But don't we know in our heart of hearts that if someone could say, we are going to show you captured Japanese prisoner atrocity films from World War II, including removal of eyes and so on, there would be no dearth of people who would tune in, probably saying, those other people are just watching it for, you know, because they're stupid. I just wanted to see what it is.
Boy, I mean, let me raise my hand then as perhaps the only person who can tell you right now I wouldn't watch it. Wouldn't watch it, wouldn't want to watch it, wouldn't want it to be seen.
I couldn't. Well,
but you've always been extraordinary.
Well, I saw a documentary on Albert Schweitzer, whom I admired, and when he started to make an incision, because he was a doctor and a surgeon, I couldn't watch. And so I was very chicken-hearted that way. I have an idea for a symposium, incidentally, which would be teenage kids discussing whether TV is making their parents more violent.
And what do you think they would conclude?
Well, I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what they had to say about it.
Caryn, any last thoughts on this subject?
I think there's a difference between the kind of reality you've just been talking about and these games. I don't think people were really hurt by the rats and they put themselves in that situation. So I think we do have to keep some separation here between the kind of games that contestants enter and the kinds of really serious reality that you were just describing that we wouldn't want to see.
Dick, last thought?
Get your violence at home and not on television.
Where it belongs, right?
Right.
Kurt?
Go and listen to a symphony orchestra.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get millions for that. But thanks anyway for being there and for coming in this evening and for talking about this. Nice to have you all with us. I'll be right back.